The true function of a cheesemonger is to provide excellent customer service. But to provide great customer service, we need to make sure that we're offering cross-pairing items. Pairings not only, offer your customer a new food experience, but it's also important to get those sales up and increase your basket rings. The basic principles of pairing and cross-selling are likes with likes. For example, a nice nutty manchego with a Marcona almond, or opposites attract, something like a pungent blue with a sweet honey. And also what kind of grows together, goes together. So if you think of Parmigiano Reggiano and Prosciutto di Parma, great classic pairings. But the only way to really be sure what works is to offer your customer a taste. So let's jump in and just try a couple of these great pairings.
So it looks like we've got some Parmigiano Reggiano, like hard aged cheeses.
You're gonna find them all together at the grocery store generally,
Yeah.
because they're bolder in flavor. A lot of them you can cook with, they're still great on plates, but we put them together here on this board because they're fairly intense.
So these are the hardest, driest,
Yes.
most aged. They tend to have the crystally, crunchy texture when you bite into them. So aged Gouda is here.
Aged Gouda.
You've got a Parmesan, but also Parmigiano Reggiano, so the one made in the US versus the one made in Italy. And then some other aged cheeses that are not Parm, but you often see with Parm,
Absolutely.
like provolone, really beefy and salty, and then
Pecorino Romano, which is,
Really
of course,
salty.
really salty.
Yeah.
Really, really salty. And then, of course, just a good flavored cheese that's made in kind of like a Grana style, which is, soaked in wine.
yeah,
Which
there's
is a
nothing
good
wrong with
snack.
that.
I get soaked in wine from time to time.
Me too. So salt is a factor here. There's a lot of salt in many of these cheeses, and just intense, lingering, long flavor and hard texture.
Are you thinking more sweet, more savory, or?
Well, some classic pairings with these styles, especially with Parm, go in the savory direction, but I'm thinking this is my cheese cracker. There are all these delicious, drippy, sticky, smeary things you can put on any of these that will offset salt, that will balance acidity. So yeah, I'm definitely inclined in the sweet direction, but I'm sure you've got some tricks up your short sleeve. So
I think we can figure something out.
where do you think we should start?
Well, I'm going to go texturally, and I'm going to start with the provolone.
Okay.
It may be probably not as salty as the rest of them, a little bit softer, but I'm going to go here with a little bit of quince paste. And because this is nice and sweet.
So quince paste, like traditionally you would pair quince paste with manchego,
Yes.
which is an aged sheep milk cheese.
But it can
But
go with other
But you're
cheeses.
riffing here, yeah?
Yeah, sheep milk is fine if you don't have manchego and you have quince paste. Let's see if it'll work with provolone.
I also like quince paste because it's sweet, but it's still got some acidity to it. It's still got some tang. So it's not just sweet.
I'm digging how this provolone, the way it's working with the quince paste isn't as sweet, nor is the provolone so kind of spicy.
Yeah.
I guess that's the way I really kind of refer to provolone.
Yeah.
And the texture is kind of all, not necessarily smooth, but it works together.
Yeah, it definitely opposites attract.
Definitely.
They're complementing one another, offsetting the sweet and the salt. And it works pretty well. Provolone's not my favorite cheese for eating, I won't lie. So to me, it's interesting when we get a pairing that, to me, makes the cheese more enjoyable.
Exactly, no.
And I think that would work really well with Pecorino Romano, also quite salty, and I think that this would balance that pretty well.
Absolutely.
Well, this is maybe it's boring and predictable, but I remember you talking about your sort of ideas about pairing and what grows together goes together,
Yes.
and looking at regional pairings. That was an inspiration for me. Parmigiano Reggiano, one of the most famous cheeses in the world, most famous cheese of Italy. It's made in a very specific region of Italy. By law, it can only be made there. And there are some other things that are only made in that same region of Italy. Prosciutto di Parma is only made in Parma. Very thin, air-cured ham. And then real balsamic vinegar, which is aged in Modena, which is in the same region. So to put those together would be kind of like a classic, super classic pairing. And I have this ridiculously old, very expensive vinegar that I trot out once every 3 years. Sorry, I poured it on you.
That's all right.
It's almost like molasses in texture. And sweet and tastes like wine and has the same kind of acidity that the cheese has. So I thought we might get a little salty, fatty. The cheese itself is kind of crunchy. Mm-hmm. And then you get that sweetness from the balsamic, and that to me is like a pocket of goodness.
All of that is very good.
Yeah.
Because usually like Reggiano is not something I would just snack on by itself. For me personally, it's a little salty, but when you kick it up with a little balsamic vinegar.
A little sweet, and then this fatty ham, which was like not good with brie, but when you put it with something that's dry.
Exactly.
Works so well.
It kind of helps my mouth salivate a little bit.
Yeah, there's a reason.
To work with that Reggiano.
There's a reason why it's classic.
Let's see, that's really good. But I'm going to go with a nice nutty aged Gouda. You can see like this one's a little bit older, so it has those larger tyrosine crystals, those crunchy bits.
Yeah, and this gets like almost butterscotchy when it gets this old.
So this I like to pair with bourbons.
Yeah, you and I have talked about this.
You know.
I've talked about this with many people.
So, but I also know what goes well with it, I think, is going to be some Marcona almonds. So you got this nuttiness of the cheese and the sweetness with kind of a little bit of the saltiness and the nuttiness of the Marcona. And
so you're going nut on nut, crunch on crunch.
I'm going all in.
That's great. A lot of people try to pair this cheese with sweet stuff, and I really like the nutty direction.
It's like crunchy caramel corn almost.
Yeah, a couple of fingers of bourbon would make it better. But I'll take this pairing. That works really well. I like that. On the whole, again, hard cheeses take sticky, smearable condiments, but there are a lot of other flavors and qualities in these cheeses. There's a lot of acidity, salt, butterscotchy notes potentially, and so playing off of those to me is where we've succeeded in every pairing.
Absolutely.
So high five. Well done, you.
Good job.
You know what? I think we've earned it.
It's okay to live a little.
Or a lot. Cheers.
Cheers.
It's my favorite.
Heaven. That is heaven.
Yeah. Right here.
Right here in this
in
kitchen.
my kitchen. Let's see if it makes it into the training video.